started recording, by the way, because some of this is too good for us not to use it in blooper reel.
Definitely.
Every single time I get on this PC, now that I have Fedora installed, something breaks. Something messes up. I don't know. I just have this weird history with Fedora. I just can't. I don't know why. It's not.
I never
meant
have
to
anything
be.
break for me, but I get those errors just like you have there all the time. I'll just be like, okay, whatever. I'm doing whatever I need to do, and nothing's broken. So I guess that error means nothing.
I don't even know what these ones are. I don't even know.
Oh, geez, those are all errors. Holy crap!
Yeah, these are all errors. And you know what? I come in here and clear them out. I just go in here. All right, problem solved. Good. check.
Wait, no. Okay, check Audacity. See if it's working.
All right, I'll give it a shot.
I'm gonna laugh so hard if it's freaking working.
No, it's not working. I'm on Fedora, man. Why would it work? Why would I expect it to work?
This is true.
Welcome to Crowbar Kernel Panic, the podcast at the intersection of Linux and gaming. This is episode 8, and today we're actually not live streaming today. Father's Day weekend kind of screwed everything up. It's like the middle of the night right now. It's way later than we normally do the show, although it's not like super late. It's only like 10 o'clock, but
it's not too bad.
I'm telling you, my spirits have lifted since I'm kind of like in show mode. But like right before the show, I was going downstairs to make a cup of coffee, and I was just thinking like, dude, I am gonna fall asleep during this show. Like I don't know why, but particularly tonight, I just feel like if you felt how tired I felt, you would think it was 2 a.m. Like I don't know why I'm so tired tonight. But so
we're also living on the edge with no Audacity.
Yep, we're living on the edge. We're doing this show today on Fedora. Because this episode is going to be all about gaming on Fedora, specifically Fedora 34, which has Wayland and Pipewire. So like we're really bleeding edge,
man.
Yeah. And I did some tests. I got some notes, and that's what this episode is going to be all about. But I'll also say, so two things could happen. One, I could fall asleep. Two, Fedora could crash. And I'm not confident we'll make it all the way through this episode because one of those two things might happen. So and just as like extra comedy, for some reason I promise I haven't been constantly getting errors, but maybe it's got something to do with OBS recording. I think this is the first time I've actually tried that. I'm just constantly getting these errors up here. So I hope to God we got a show recorded at the end of this.
Something.
But you can send us emails at crowbarkernelpanic@pm.me. Also join us on Discord. We're in the Mintcast Discord. There's a link to that in the show notes. So this episode all about Fedora. You came up with this when we were live streaming last week. I think you mentioned either Wayland or Fedora, and we decided we would give this a shot.
I mentioned Wayland, even though I haven't got to use it.
Yeah, it's a tricky thing. It's a tricky thing, especially with Nvidia. That's the big thing.
Probably trickery involved to get it to work.
Yeah. So you've had it for almost 2 weeks now. I only just installed it. Like I've only had it for a week. I installed it Sunday night.
I installed it like right after we recorded that show, like maybe the day after or something like that.
And what is your experience before we get into it? What is your experience with Fedora? When was the first time you ever used Fedora?
Oh, when I first used probably maybe like 23, maybe I'd say. Fedora 23, maybe 20. I'd say between 23 and 28, I'd say. That would be the first time I used it. Now, I didn't use it for very long, but that would probably be sometime around the first time I used it. I mean, technically, if you count CentOS as a Fedora type thing, technically, it would be like Fedora 20 because I used CentOS a while ago, and if you go by what Fedora was based on, at the time that CentOS was out, it would be like Fedora 20, something like that. The packages and all that would be about that level.
I don't know what version number it was, but it was a very long time ago. When actually, I've actually told this story about my introduction to Linux, and I think I may have said Ubuntu sometimes, and I may have said Fedora sometimes, because the truth is I don't remember which was first, but they were together. Like, it was like I was experimenting with those two things around the same time, and it was a long time ago. Like, GNOME 2 Fedora.
Oh, wow.
And
I wasn't that far.
yeah, I have no idea what version number it was or anything, but I remember at that time I actually liked it. I liked the fact that it was not Ubuntu, just like the whole I don't know what you call it, but like just the contrarian side of me was like, everybody's using Ubuntu, I'm Fedora, baby. Like, I'm a
Going against the
trendsetter,
grain, man.
Right? Yeah. It's not enough to just be using Linux versus Windows. I want to use Fedora versus Ubuntu. And that was like early days, and I remember I liked it back then. I even remember that I got World of Warcraft to run on it in like OpenGL, like it was awful.
It was awful, but it ran.
Right. And I did that for a little while, and I think that's the last time I used it until a few years ago. Like, I don't think I ever touched Fedora again. And then, like you were saying, Red Hat and CentOS. Red Hat and CentOS I use professionally, and so I feel like I'm somewhat familiar with Fedora because I'm familiar with Red Hat.
Right.
But the things that you do on a Red Hat server are so different than what you would do on your home desktop. Right. That it is a very different thing. Being like, there's a familiarity, like there's certain things about, Yum versus DNF, Red Hat still uses Yum, but right, essentially they're the same. They're just DNF's a new version, and I guess in the latest version of Red Hat, maybe they've switched to DNF. I'm actually not even sure.
They probably have by now,
most likely. But I guess I've never, at a server at work, I've never tried to get Steam to work. You know what I mean? Like, there's just,
I'd like to see your boss that way after that day.
Yeah, like there's just things that like I don't know. The familiarity only goes so far. Right. And in the past, I've tried like maybe Fedora 30, 31, something like that. And I never could get used to it, because it just felt so different on my desktop than something like Ubuntu or Linux Mint or even Arch or something like that. It just trying to find applications that I use and how to install them on Fedora, because are they in an RPM? Am I going to have to use the Snap version? Like there's just like, right. It's just, if you're already living in that world, it probably doesn't feel this way. But because I'm already used to getting Discord in a certain way on every distro I use, then I'm already in the habit of doing that, and I don't want to find a different way. And that could be a bad example. As far as I know, Discord's available on the software store, but anyway.
Yeah, I think I have the Flatpak version of Discord.
Yeah.
I don't think it was actually, I don't know, it might have been, but I always default to Flatpaks whenever I can, because, then I know it's just going to be the same across the board,
Yeah. And that really helps. I think trying to use like switching package managers today is a whole lot easier because of Flatpaks.
Oh yeah, yeah.
So I just also have never really felt that comfortable with GNOME ever since they switched, and with GNOME 3, and this has GNOME 40. So we forgot to mention that at the top of the show. So it's Wayland, Pipewire, and GNOME 40. So like it's all the bleeding new. I know what we should do. We should rate it the way we rate games.
Oh no.
So if you were to give it a rating,
vendor garbage. No.
I'd really have to think about it. So our rating system goes vendor garbage, vendor trash,
right.
common, rare, or no, there's common, uncommon, rare, and then epic.
Yeah.
I'm definitely not giving it vendor trash. I'm definitely not giving it epic.
Kidding.
It's somewhere in the middle for me.
Yeah.
I got to say I was pleasantly surprised with GNOME 40. I don't hate GNOME 40.
Oh yeah. Like when I tried the beta when GNOME 40 was out of Fedora on one of my laptops. I was like, this is the best GNOME that they've had in a long time, like stock GNOME, I mean, without having to add anything to it.
Yeah, I agree with that. I think I made a joke about breaking up with GNOME on Mintcast one time, but like I
do remember that. Yeah.
yeah. And the gist of my joke was just that like it's not GNOME, it's not you, it's me. Like I can tell that it's a good environment. I can see why people like it, but just for whatever reason it doesn't click with me and I just don't really like it. But I didn't feel that way about GNOME 40. And maybe it's just I've been exposed to it enough now that I'm getting used to it. Like you've been chiseling away at me forever, GNOME. You're finally getting through.
I think this version is just better.
It is.
I really do, because I felt the same way. I haven't been able to really like GNOME stock until this version. I do have extensions on it now, but I don't have nearly as many as I did before this.
Yeah, and that's another thing too, is I've always tried to like use a lot of extensions and try to customize it as much as I can. And this time around I really tried to just like, I've only got one extension installed, unless, Fedora may have some already packaged, I don't know, but the only one that I default have is this dash to plank here. And that's the only thing I have installed. And the only reason why I needed that was because I couldn't use plank with Wayland, but you can't use dash to plank either with Wayland. But now obviously I'm running on X and I have dash to plank.
Yeah, I have 17 installed. One I'm getting rid of because it was a Podman container manager, and I was trying to do Plex in a pod or Docker container, but using Podman, and it just didn't work. So I'm just gonna ixnay that. Yeah, leave that for my server installs.
That's the funny thing, and there's a crossover to gaming, is that GNOME extensions are like having like add-ons in WoW.
Yeah,
where it's like a new expansion comes out and your game no longer logs in, and you're like, which add-on is it? I gotta figure out which one broke it.
That's exactly how it is. Or you log in and all your stuff's all screwed up, and it's like error, and you're like, what's going on? Oh yeah, GNOME updated and none of the extensions updated. So well, gotta wait.
The only problem that I had from that I think was specific to GNOME was yesterday or today I sent you a message. I was like, for no reason, my Nvidia drivers just quit working.
Right.
And now it says it's using something called LLVM. I don't even know what that is. Well,
reading that and hearing you say it is like totally a different thing. Like, if I would have heard you say it like that, I would have been dying.
So I Googled it, and apparently, and I'm sure there's people listening that know exactly what it is, but I didn't
like,
know.
Why don't you know this already?
But I Googled it, and apparently other people on the Ubuntu forums were having the same problem. So I think it's GNOME related. I think it could be GNOME related.
That sounds like it.
But it was easy enough to fix. All I did was reinstall my Nvidia drivers, and it fixed it. But then that brought up the conversation that we had about installing the Nvidia drivers. I don't know why I didn't even think about adding the repository for it. I manually installed them, and it was a pain. It was such a pain.
Oh, I hate manually. That's the worst. Any distro, that's bad. That's horrible.
It was such a pain, and I thought so. Like, because I Googled Nvidia. All right. I'll tell you how I went down this path. All right, and this goes
the
to
rabbit hole begins
all
here.
right. I gotta go back to my study. All right. If I go through the study, it'll tell you how I went through that path. So I wanted to test gaming performance on Wayland using the free drivers, the nouveau or however you say it.
Yeah.
And then I also wanted to test Nvidia drivers using Wayland, if it was possible. I didn't know if it was possible at the time. And then I wanted to test just Nvidia X11 for, a comparison across all of these different things. And so whenever you install Fedora 34, automatically you're going to get the nouveau drivers with Wayland and Pipewire. You're going to get all that right off the bat.
Right.
And I got to say, it's a huge improvement because Fedora 33, I think, I tried to install it for Mintcast. We were going to review it. It just wasn't having my NVIDIA card. I just couldn't get it to install. I couldn't get it to load the test environment to do the installer. I couldn't get it to do any of that without some, and I just wasn't willing to put in the effort. None of that. Everything was flawless this time. So that was a bad experience I'd had in the past that had been reconciled for sure. So good job.
Yeah, the longer you have NVIDIA cards, the better it gets over time because...
that's a good point too.
They add the driver to the open source driver. Or add the graphics card to the open source driver.
Yeah, that's a good point too. So not only has Fedora improved, but so has NVIDIA drivers. It's probably encompassed, or the nouveau drivers.
Right.
So I installed it, and just without making any changes whatsoever, I installed Steam, and then I wanted to run. I didn't want to install Proton or anything like that. I wanted to run some sort of a test that I knew would work, on the Steam Linux native. And so I went with the Half-Life 2 Lost Coast, which is kind of funny because it's like a really old graphics card test, but it's a little newer than the Counter-Strike one, so I went with it. In hindsight, I should have used Gravity Mark. I wasn't sure if 3D Mark had a Linux version, but they actually probably do. But Gravity Mark by Telesim, I don't know how you say it. That's what I'll use in the future because it's a more modern test. It's able to test Vulkan and all this other stuff.
Yeah, I'll have to look up that. I never even knew about that one.
Yeah, I just heard about it after I had done these tests.
Oh, okay.
And in the past we've done tests, and I've also used the Lost Coast thing. I don't actually think it was for a podcast. I think it was just me and you talking. And I've always used the Lost Coast thing, but that's pretty dated. I shouldn't be using that. I should use this Gravity Mark thing. But anyway, for the purposes of this conversation, I use the Lost Coast test. And the nouveau drivers on Wayland got 63 frames per second. 63.29. So then I followed this website's tutorial. It's ifnottruethenfalse.com Fedora NVIDIA guide. And this website has a guide to installing Fedora through Wayland, as well as installing NVIDIA drivers through Wayland, as well as directly with X11. And so following their guide, I did the NVIDIA plus Wayland. Are you ready for this?
Oh, gee. I just read it.
I got 6 frames per second.
Ooh, a whole 6. Wow.
I got six whole frames per second. 6.86 to be exact. I'm not sure if I did something wrong or if it's just not ready for NVIDIA. NVIDIA's not ready for Wayland yet. Is probably the most likely. But yeah, so 6 whole frames per second. Was that
full on Wayland or was that X Wayland that it was using?
I'm not sure. In the settings window, I'm trying to pull it up now for the video. In the settings window, whenever you go down to About, and then it shows you like your Windows system, it said Wayland. So it's not X Wayland. It would have said X Wayland there.
Okay.
So maybe through X Wayland it would have been better.
It would have been better because it does the translation.
But like I may have also done something wrong. 6 is just hilarious.
That is funny. I love the next one. The next one's the best. 6 versus this.
Yeah, and then so NVIDIA with X11, I followed this if true then false.com's method, which was a manual install. I had to boot in multi-user mode and finish the installation, and then change the boot back to graphical.
And blacklist the nouveau drivers.
Blacklist the drivers.
That's the worst part. I always forget to do that, and then it's just like, oh, crap.
I had to change my grub. I had to do all that stuff. But that being said, it got two. So this is Nvidia X11. It got 287.68 frames per second. Now again, that's a really old test, but I just wanted to use the same test across all of them. And probably good thing I did, because if I had used a more modern test, the Nvidia with Wayland probably just would have exploded. Yeah. It wouldn't have even worked.
You wouldn't have had enough room for all the errors on your.
They would have put a complaint in the mail to my address. So yeah, quite a significant difference between X11 and Wayland Nvidia versus the nouveau. Even on X11, I have never done a test, but even on X11, I don't know that the nouveau drivers would be that much better than 6329. They probably are pretty similar at this point. So it would have to be something natively installable on Linux. So something like Counter-Strike or a Valve game. That's just the first thing that pops in my mind. But we were just talking about all the games earlier. Metro, Valheim, something like that may actually run pretty similar.
Right.
But anything you're going to need any kind of compatibility layer for, we're not there yet.
Yeah,
but there's people working on it. There's people working on it. So
right.
I mean, this time next year, probably all be running Wayland. I think it'll be.
Yeah.
I think that'll be about right.
I think so. It's definitely coming. It's going to be here sooner than later, I think.
Yeah. But
see, the problem with the open source nouveau drivers is that it doesn't scale up the graphics clock speed. It just uses the stock clock speed. That's why you're getting so much of a lower frame rate. Now, I mean, some of the older graphics cards it does work on because they figured out how to get it to work. And if I'm not mistaken, I think you can manually set the clock speed with the nouveau drivers, but then it's always running at that clock speed until you set it back or whatever.
Yeah.
But that's why it's so much worse. It's not because it's not working. It's just the fact that they don't have the automatic boosting of the clock speed.
Yeah. Yeah. I think you're right. And I think it's only going to continue to get better. It's way better than it was. I remember the free drivers used to not do hardly anything. So it's way better.
You might as well give up. Yeah.
Yeah. I was surprised to see above 60 FPS, honestly. I was pretty surprised.
Yeah, me too. That was pretty impressive.
Of course, another aspect of that test though, another reason the Lost Coast is probably a bad test. Valve is notoriously CPU heavy game. Their source engine. The source engine is really CPU. I remember one of the first PCs I built, I did not have a graphics card yet, but I could still play source engine games. Just because it's so CPU intensive. But that being said, this is intentionally a graphic stress test, so it was it was designed to do that. But again, it's designed to test the source engine, so I don't know. Probably not the best test in the world. So that led me down that path of that's why I had this weird installation where I had manually installed my graphics drivers, and then I was like, well, how the heck did you install your graphics drivers? And you were just like, oh, I added the repo, you idiot. Like, of course, what would you do on any other?
I always said it, man. Come on.
Yeah, I know. But whenever I read it and then I looked, and you don't even have to find.
Oh, so, I know. I've had that feeling many times with people saying stuff like, "Oh, well, why didn't you do it this way?" Because I didn't think about it.
I mean, in the software store, they actually have like some available repos that you just
a little
enable. Yeah, and so you don't even have to go find it. You just go enable it. That's all you need to do. And I was just like, oh, Of course.
And the best part about Fedora, their repo, is that they have the newest NVIDIA drivers, unlike Ubuntu, where they have the 460 version. This one's 465, which is like the bleeding edge NVIDIA driver.
That's good to know. I didn't check that. That's really
they
good.
have like the newest one. Like I even went on their website just to be sure that it's the newest, and it is the absolute newest one. You can't even install it from their website and get a better one. NVIDIA, I mean.
So that was the good thing about doing it. The method I did was that I was sure I got the newest one because I went and got it. And so whenever I added the repo and then I did an update, I was like, oh, well, I probably have the newest anyway. So that's good to know that it actually even if I had done it the easy way, it still would have been the latest one.
They have the older version too, but that is the default one when you just say, oh, install the, this version driver for this graphics card. That's the one it installs.
I got the links to both methods in the show notes. One is for itsfoss.com, install NVIDIA driver on Fedora. That's the one you should do. So if you need step by step, that's the one that basically tells you to go enable the repo and then just install it.
Yeah, and I don't think that is for 34, but it still works on 34.
Oh yeah, you're right. It's not for 34, and if you just copy and paste, that's a good point. I might need to find another link to put in the show notes because they don't have the latest driver. I don't think if you just copy and paste, you're not going to get the latest.
Yeah,
thing.
you have to. They do tell you to look for your graphics card. They do have the copy and paste to look to see what graphics card you have.
Yeah.
So you can figure it out. It's really not that hard once you copy and paste that and you figure out what graphics card you have.
And then so my FPS test results for Wayland, I feel like we're promising. I can't wait to see it improve. I didn't know how to test Pipewire other than just trying to use it to do the podcast. And so far,
I didn't notice anything different other than your issue with Audacity. So
yeah. So
I'll tell you much about it.
I'll tell you my understanding of Pipewire, and take this with a grain of salt because I doubt that I have a very good understanding. But my understanding of Pipewire is that there's applications out there that want ALSA. There's applications out there that want Pulse. There's applications out there that want Jack. Well, Pipewire runs like a Pipewire dash ALSA, Pipewire dash Jack. It runs these things. It's part of its service, and so you can take advantage. Applications can take advantage of Pipewire as if it were Jack.
Right.
That's my understanding of it. Otherwise, it's just black magic to me. But I would say, as far as installing,
Wizard Online, what?
As far as installing Fedora 34 and using it, there was no issue. Pipewire works great. I didn't.
Right.
I couldn't even, if I were looking for a problem, I couldn't even tell you one.
Right.
But I ran into this weird thing where I can't use OBS and Audacity at the same time. It seems like OBS is like using my microphone and not allowing any other application to use it. And I'm not sure what it is. I've had this problem on other distributions before that obviously were not using Pipewire. So, I mean, I don't think it's a problem specific to Pipewire. But when I've had this problem in the past, I've been able to Google it and find a solution. Whereas I spent time trying to find a solution specific to Pipewire, and there's just not enough. I could not find enough information about it yet. As a matter of fact, some of the information I did find on Pipewire is actually outdated now. Like some of where the configuration file is located in most of the instructions I found was like etsy/pipewire/pipewireconf or something like that. But that didn't exist for me, so I was like, oh, well, maybe because when I was really pissed off, I was just like, DNF remove Pipewire asterisk,
When I was real pissed off.
I've had a busy week, man. And so when I was really upset about it, I tried to uninstall it. And then I was like,
and then the mayhem happened.
Yeah. So I tried to uninstall it, and I was like,
I wonder you're getting so many errors. Pipewire's freaking out
I've probably screwed up my system. And so I was like, well, I better give it another chance. I better see what I can find. I'll go back and try to fix it. But then that Etsy folder didn't exist. And so I was like, oh, well, maybe I successfully uninstalled it. But then I saw on like some other Fedora's forum somewhere where someone said, oh, no, they moved it to this other place in /user/ yada, yada, yada. And sure enough, that's where it was. And so I don't know. I just had trouble with the documentation on Pipewire. I didn't RTFM very good. And so I don't know. That could have been me. I also had trouble researching the Nvidia thing, and then whenever I went back and looked at it, I was like, "Oh, I was a complete idiot. I don't know how I missed those links on Google." I think maybe I've just had a busy week, and I've been doing this after already working all day. Maybe it's way simpler than I think it is.
You're seeing Fedora all day at work, and then you come home, you see Fedora, and you're just like, rage quit.
I'm definitely not seeing Fedora at work.
Okay. Well, at least you don't have to deal with that.
But I just had trouble. I had trouble with the documentation. Trouble could have been me.
The only problem I had that I didn't have on anything else is with Elder Scrolls Online. I don't know if you wanted to get into that right now, where I had that issue that you had before with the
yeah. So let's talk about our experience gaming.
I never had that. I never had that issue on any other distro until this one, and I think I know why it's happening on this one versus the other ones, because I had a similar issue with another game because of ButterFS. And I think that could be the issue because of something to do with ButterFS's permissions gives it really weird errors and stuff when you're trying to install a game. And I'm thinking that I'm having, well, let me go back and let me state the issue I'm having. When I'm trying to install Elder Scrolls Online, it's telling me that my disk is only like 7 gigs. And it's obviously like 400, so.
Yeah.
That's not the problem. What I'm thinking is there some sort of permission that's not working correctly, and it's thinking that it's that small, but it's really not. And the only reason I think that it's a ButterFS issue is because this has happened to me on other things where I've tried to games where I tried to install them on ButterFS, and then I wiped that out, made it AXT4, and it worked just fine.
Mm-hmm.
It wasn't the same type of issue, but it was the same kind of permissions kind of possibly issue.
So I almost always use ext4. And I have had that issue before. As a matter of fact, it's really common that people have that issue. As a matter of fact, I think most people have it. I think that you maybe dodged a bullet.
I got lucky, I guess.
Because if you
I think I remember it happening a long time ago when I first tried installing it on Linux, but since then I haven't had the issue until right now.
Because if you look, I'm pulling up the Proton DB right now.
Yeah, I found a lot of articles on it, but I didn't find the answer that you gave me that I knew you knew to fix it. I didn't find that on any of the articles that I read, so that's why I ended up asking you.
So what happens is whenever you install the game, you'll get one of two error messages. One is, and I got both of them on Fedora. I'd only ever got.
Of course.
I'm not trying to criticize Fedora. I'm not trying to criticize it. My overall impression was pretty positive. I was going to get to the good later, but I ended up getting both, which I had only ever saw one in the past. But one is that it'll pop up and it'll do as you're saying during the installation. It'll say that it requires like 20 gigs to install, but you've only got 7.
Right.
And then another error message that you'll sometimes get is that it's not writable. The folder is not writable is what it'll say. And for me, in the past on Linux Mint, I have basically reverted back to an extremely old version of Proton, like 3 dot something, like a really old version of Proton. And that allowed me to install the game. And then once it was installed, I switched back to a newer version of Proton. And then obviously it had to reinstall Proton, but it didn't have to reinstall the whole game.
Right.
I
did try that first.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah,
That did not work.
I tried it this time too, and it didn't work. And I'm not sure why it didn't work. But I tried it too.
You had the same problem on Fedora.
Oh yeah. I had it worse.
Oh, okay. See, I didn't realize you had this problem. Yeah, you had it worse because you had both the errors.
Yeah, I had it worse this time around than I ever have. Somehow this is funny to talk about, but the Kal-Il, funny name, Kal-Il instead of Kal-El. Kal-Il posted on the ProtonDB page a starting command that you can put into Steam. This solved the problem for me. I'll make sure it's in the show notes, but it is proton_set_game_drive equals 1 and then command. If you preface launching your game with that, then and you just add that in Steam, you right click on it and there's a place to put a starting command. If you just preface it with that, then that got me past the error. And I had even seen people say like, oh, if you just keep trying it, eventually you'll get past it. I tried it like 100 times.
Yeah, I did too.
And I
remember you mentioning that before when you had this problem, and I did try that. I tried it at least 15 times, and every single time I got the same error.
Yeah, so
and I might be getting both those errors, but the thing is, when I get the errors, I can't see them. It goes behind the Steam thing, and I can't see what they were, so I don't even know what they are. And I am getting two, so I probably am getting both the same ones that you are.
Yeah, that happened to me also. But yeah, again, that's not specific to Fedora. The reason I jumped back into Elder Scrolls was because the new chapter or whatever dropped, and I picked that up. But it's also a good comparison because we've talked about Elder Scrolls in the past. So it's now that we're trying out Fedora, it's good that we have something that we've done in the past. And I gotta say, I saw a huge improvement. I don't know what your experience was, but Nvidia
I didn't get
X11
to install it yet.
Oh, you still haven't installed it?
No,
holy cow!
I haven't had a chance to get it working.
Oh man. I can't wait to hear how yours goes because
I really want to because I want it to be good, man.
Because I remember whenever we did our first episode was Elder Scrolls. I remember when we did our first episode. I think I said that like in the cities where all the people hang out, with everything going on, I was only getting like 40 FPS.
Right. Yeah, because I had to upgrade my CPU and then I got better performance.
And I could get away from town and I could get to 60, but I couldn't get it in town. On Fedora, consistently, I'd get close to 60. Like in town where everything's going on, and then out away from town, I'm getting like close to 80. Like I'm getting like it wasn't just a small improvement. Like it was a very noticeable difference. Between and I'm running Nvidia X11. The only difference is Fedora. It's GNOME versus Cinnamon. Fedora versus Arch, or everything I was on before. I think in that first episode I was on Linux Mint. So I mean, it's pretty dramatic. I don't know that it'll be that way with every game, but right now that's the game. Right, I've only played 2 games the last week, and it's Elder Scrolls and Albion Online, and both of those games are episode 1 games. Both of those games ran smoother than I've ever seen them run. On Arch and on Linux Mint, I would get this like screen tearing at the top of the screen occasionally on Albion Online. And it didn't happen so often that it was like super distracting and would just notice it from time to time. I think I saw it one time on Fedora, and I don't know why it's so different. I can't put my finger on what it is, but it's certainly different. It's certainly improved enough, so much so that I'm on the fence about whether I want to wipe this drive and install something else or keep it. Because while it was frustrating getting everything set up, which is hilarious that I normally run Arch, and I don't think that's frustrating, I felt like it was extremely frustrating to get Fedora set up. But now that it's set up, I see an improvement in performance, and I think I might stick with it. I'm just afraid that whenever something breaks, and then I'm trying to research it and fix it, and I'm afraid I'm gonna get frustrated and give up and either go back to Arch or go to something else. But right now, except for this podcasting situation, I'm pretty happy with it.
I think you can get around get around it if you use the Flatpak version of Audacity.
Yeah,
I bet you it would be fine.
I'll try that next. I'll try that after we do this and see if that's going to work for me.
Fixes it. Yeah. Yep. Flatpaks for the win.
But yeah, I mean, overall, I don't know what else. I don't know what else we got to go into for Fedora.
Oh, and I had the best time with Resident Evil on Fedora. I remember I installed it like after I installed Fedora, I installed it, and oh man, it's been so long I don't remember. I alls I know is that it works and I can play it, and the only thing I have to do to get it to not have that memory overrun error is I have to set the shadows down to medium instead of high. And I tried that on Linux Mint and everything, and that wouldn't work. So it definitely wasn't a Ubuntu issue or anything like that. I don't know. I don't know. It was just it plays now, and all I got to do is put the shadows to medium, and it works.
I wish I could put my finger on exactly what the difference is.
You never can, because, and you know what I've noticed over my distro hopping is that no matter how many times you install the same distro, every single time there's something just a little different. There's always something that's wrong in that install that wasn't wrong in the other install. And you can be using the same ISO, everything, same hardware. It doesn't matter. I don't know why that is with Linux, but that always seems to happen. And I've never experienced that on Windows. And I'm not trying to say Windows is better in any way, blah, 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 all this crap. I'm just saying I've never experienced it with Windows. With Windows, when you install it, it's the same every freaking time unless you install something, different. At least in my experience.
Yeah, it's because of the choices. It's because of so many options. The thing I hate about running Windows is that like I can't choose to run a specific file manager. I can't.
Right, that's the thing. Right.
Yeah, but with that availability and those choices comes a certain level of instability sometimes. Now, that being said, Linux is famous for stability. If you think about it, like in the internet space, servers run.
Server world, it's rock solid. Don't even freaking put Windows Server on anything. It's worthless compared to Linux. I mean, it's just whenever you go from those distro to distro, it's just minor things, and you don't realize how it's going to interact sometimes. So I don't know. I don't know what score to get. I think at least it's got to be. So if we go back to our scale, I think that I'm giving Fedora maybe an uncommon, maybe even for
rare. Uncommon for now. Uncommon for now. I'm not done yet.
That's what I was thinking.
Yeah.
I have to still get Elder Scrolls installed, because just because you installed it doesn't mean it's going to work for me.
Mm-hmm.
I have to get that installed. I have to test some other games.
Yeah.
I have to wait to see if my freaking extensions break, because Fedora's, pretty rolling. So I'm waiting for that day when it goes to 40.0.2, because I'm on 40.0.1 right now. And all the extensions break, and I just rage quit because
that's me too.
All screwed up.
Is like right now I'm happy, but I just know any minute now I'm going to log into my PC and something weird's going to be happening. Half this screen's going to be over here, half this screen's going to be over there, and I'm just going to be like, that is the thing that makes me so mad about this right now, and I can't figure it out. I'm sure it's probably easy, but when I log in after I start the computer up, my login screen is on my left monitor that is vertical, and but it's trying to be horizontal. And I haven't figured out how to get that one to be on my main screen that's in front of me on the right. So I'm sure there's a way, and I'm sure it's easy, but I cannot figure it out. So I'm sure it's running GDM.
Yep.
And so there's probably a place there you need to configure that.
I'm sure there is.
Yeah. But it just goes back to that thing though, where it's just like, I don't know how to put my finger on it. It just Fedora feels different. Feels different. Hits differently. I think that's a wrap. I think that's a good show. I think we did pretty good. It was a pretty good episode. I haven't been keeping track of the time, so yeah, I don't know. I was wondering if we had enough to break it into two. I might try to. I don't know if we will or not. Maybe break the E3 and the news into one and the Fedora and the other.
Yeah, I mean, if you got enough time, go right ahead.
But yeah, so I guess if you're hearing this outro and it's right after the Fedora segment, stay tuned next week. We got a whole nother episode. Maybe not. Maybe it's all one. But yeah, so I think for now, I'm leaving Fedora. I'm not planning on wiping, and I'm going to stick with it until I run into some problem that I can't solve.
I still have some testing to do, so I'm definitely sticking with it.
And I'll be honest with you, I don't know what to go to next. Like, I'm such a distro hopper. I love trying out different distros.
I know, me too.
But I don't know.
Bad.
Nothing is exciting me right now, like that I just have to jump to and try out. I don't know what I would try, so I'll give Fedora a shot until something sparks my interest, I guess.
Yep.
And judging based on my previous opinions of Fedora, that's a huge improvement. Like the fact that I'm willing to stay on it, I feel like the Fedora 34 is a really good release.
Yeah,
it really is. Oh well, I guess we'll see you next week. Thanks for listening. Yep. Peace.
Peace.
All right. Let's make sure this whole thing recorded that whole time.
Oh, gosh.
I will definitely quit Fedora if it turns out that it didn't record any of that.